Hey everybody, welcome back to the Preacher Boys podcast. I posted earlier on the Facebook page today that Kathy Durbin's abuser, Paul Fox, would be appearing in court today, January 8th, 2021. And it did happen. It happened a little bit later than expected. It was supposed to happen at 9 a.m. Ended up happening at 10:30. But here's just a quick update of what happened and how everything went down. So like I said, it started probably around 10:30 or 11 o'clock. The exact time I'm not sure of, but the audio kicked in, tuned in. It was a very, very short situation. Things went a little bit differently than what was planned. Kathy just shared to her Facebook just a minute ago, saying that, wow, not what was on the agenda today. But things ended up changing. So originally it was going to be, Kathy sharing some of her story, giving her, testifying and everything like that. But it ended up going directly to the actual plea. And so Laverne Paul Fox did plead guilty. He pled guilty to 2 counts. I don't have the exact code. I was trying to write down fast enough. But like I said, this was probably about 10 minutes, the entire thing. So I took notes as much as I could. But the 2 counts he did plead to, again, I don't have the exact code. I'm sure I could locate it. I might try to find it and put it on the video. But count 1 was using a foreign object to digitally penetrate the vagina of a child under the age of 18 years old. Count 2 was lewdly and lasciviously touching a child who was 15 years old when he was at least 10 years older. He was 31, she was 15. It was done to gratify or arouse, and his conduct involved excessive sexual touching. And Laverne Paul Fox, or Paul Fox, pled guilty to both of those charges. And again, that's a huge win. I mean, that solves a lot of the time that would have been spent trying to convince or persuade that this was the case. And I'm glad that Kathy's not having to sit through, several of these waiting for some kind of result. But I will say, I just wanted to touch on the fact of, how disappointing it was listening to how these confessed crimes were dealt with and how they were addressed. The judge who was on, basically came in. He said that the average, get this, I mean, and this alone just tells you how our legal system treats cases like this. He said normally a situation like this would require about 3 years in jail, basically in actual or in prison, sorry, but basically behind bars, 3 years behind bars. He said, I want to make sure you don't do any more than 365 days of probation. And he noted a couple things. And again, this was really bothersome. So he said, the biggest thing for me is the time. So this was 38 years ago. You've lived a productive life, you've raised children, you've gotten remarried, your marriage was hurt by this originally happening, but you've now remarried, you've rebuilt your life, and you've been productive all these years, which, again, it doesn't mean that he didn't do the crime. What it means is that he got away with it for 38 years. And so for the judge to use that as some kind of measurement of how good of a person or how worthy Paul Fox is of getting to just move on, doesn't really make any sense whatsoever. The judge did say, but the victim had to live with this for 30 plus years, but it was an afterthought. The primary thing that we should be focusing on in this situation is the victim. What did, in this case, Kathy experience, and how has it affected her over the last 30 plus years? And instead, the judge focused on everything that Paul Fox had accomplished in spite of his crime. That doesn't make any sense, especially when he pled guilty to these 2 acts. So the judge is going to try to do less than a year of probation. He might have to register as a sex offender. It was listed as it's possible that he might have to. And the sentencing is not going to be till April 30th. So literally, after Paul Fox pleads guilty to these things, he gets to go home, chill out, and then come back and get sentenced later. And it seems like sentencing is going to be pretty light. But again, it's good that he pled guilty. It's good that sentencing is happening, that there's actually progress being made here. But it's really disappointing to see how the system treats this. I was recommending a documentary recently called I Am Evidence. It deals with the issue of backlogging rape kits. And one of the things that's said within that documentary is from a prosecutor in the county where it takes place, and her name's Kim Worthy, and she says, "We don't give a damn about women in this country." I think it's so true. I mean, you look at, I would say even children. We don't give a damn about women or children. It's so often judges focus on how it's going to affect the abuser and not how it's affected the abused. And so today was a day of mixed emotions. I'm sure everyone involved, I mean, I'm sure Kathy feels the same way. It's mixed emotions. I know that she is, very happy that he pled guilty. I know that she's very happy that there's something happening here. And you can see that just from her Facebook posts. But I just, I can also imagine too, I'm sure it's the feeling that, Rachel's had when she came on. So many have had, where it's like, this is all that's going to happen to them. Like, this is how our legal system treats these people. And so it's just, to me, again, while it's good that the sentencing happened, it was honestly disgusting how I felt the judge curbed and cushioned everything he said about Paul Fox with, "Oh, well, you were a youth pastor. It was 38 years ago. You built a productive life." None of that mattered. That has nothing to do with the crime that was committed. If you only molest a child once in your life, you're a child molester. If you molest 100 children in your life, you're a child molester. The crime is the crime, and that's what needs to be dealt with. You can live, 80 years and only do one crime, but you still committed that crime. You should pay for it accordingly. I will say one thing that did come out through the whole thing that was actually really interesting, and I think it's going to be good moving forward, is the judge did say to Paul Fox something along the lines of, this is not a quote verbatim, he said something along the lines of, "Am I to understand that when this happened, your pastor just asked you to leave as opposed to it being reported?" And Paul Fox did say yes. So Paul Fox did confirm in that recording that Bruce Goddard simply asked him to leave when he was made aware of what was going on. And so that adds a lot of ammunition to future cases against Goddard. I think it's really important that we got that information out. And I think it's good that Paul Fox shared that information, because coming from him is going to hold a lot of weight, considering he's already pled guilty. What does he have to lose by just saying that? So I think it's really good that it came from him directly. I know there's been a lot of victims that have pointed to that. There's been a lot of, people on the outside like myself who point to that. But for that to come from really the horse's mouth and say, hey, Goddard was, basically actively did cover this up, that's huge. That's huge that we have that information out, and we can point to it and say, look, from one of the abusers themselves, this is what they had to say about Goddard. So, today was a mixed day of emotions. I got to be honest, I was really upset listening to it. It's truly disgusting the way that we treat these cases in our country. It's disgusting the way we treat women and children who've been victimized, especially, we want to take these cases and say, oh, because it was a youth pastor, they've done their life, giving to people, or because they were this, or, fill in the blank, which he wasn't even a youth pastor. The judge was wrong on that information. He was a bus ministry director. But because he was in this ministry or that ministry, they were trying to do the right thing. No, it's honestly more egregious because they're using a spiritual platform and use that to manipulate their victims. They're taking a place that should be a safe place, a place of religious healing, and turning it into a place of religious trauma. And I think when you're a judge looking at these cases and you're factoring in someone's, the damage somebody's doing, that's not something in their favor. That says that they took a position that should be sacred, something that should be there to minister to the community, and they used it as a weapon. And I think that's so important, and that can't be or understated when we're looking at these cases. But again, that's just an update. If you missed the live stream, I know the scheduling was weird, so people were tuning in and out. But that's what happened. Sentencing is going to be April 30th at this point. I believe he said 8:30 a.m., but that's going to be changing around, I'm sure. But April 30th is the date that will happen, and there's potential for lifetime registration as a sex offender. But thank you to all who were, saying a prayer, sending well wishes to Kathy today. Keep it up, and I'll keep you guys informed as I find out more about what's going on. But it's truly just something that I think we as a country need to examine, how we treat victims of these crimes. and especially in religious contexts. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and I'll catch you on the next episode here on this show.